wanted to go over here is the PA Zig Zag study. For reference, we have it based on the Sierra chart zigzag study, which you can see overlaid above on the 1 minute bars here on NQ. The settings I'm using, calculation mode 2, which is what's used inside our study. And we're using 20-point reversals with 1 bar required for a reversal. So here in our study, we're using calculation mode 2 under the hood, and we're using, I have the settings matching the zigzag so you can see what's going on. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking these rotations, measuring them just like the zigzag study does. And when a rotation is detected as finished, I take the data from that rotation. Now, whether it's, we have a couple of options. We can look at length, duration, volume, or delta on the leg. And then I throw it into a stats measurement, so some calculations about getting average and standard deviation and whatnot. And I'm doing it in a way that's careful not to incur look-ahead bias, so that the rotation that, let's say just finished is not going to be, not going to cheat in a back test and include that measurement before I actually had it. Also because there's some lag here, particularly with a 20-point reversal requirement, that you're not going to know rotations happen until it's already done. So I want to make sure that I see the updated average next time I'm in the next period, but that I don't cheat and get averages, that I don't get measurements before they happen, which is always possible to do in Sierra if you're not careful. So I have several grouping options, and here I'm using time periods. So you can see on this 1 minute chart that the metrics are bucketed, but by every half hour. So we can see that that you change, these are reflecting the averages of rotations that finish in that 30-minute period. And the rotations that start in that 30-minute period. If we switch to in time, it would be those that finish in that 30-minute period. So you have to think about what's appropriate for you on your use case and what you're interested in measuring. But in either case, it does not have look-ahead bias. And we discard rotations between sessions. So if you get a gap over, from day 1 to day 2 on your chart, that these gaps or weekend gaps or whatever, overnight gaps when the market is closed, they're not going to be counted as rotations if you have this set to yes. So the grouping option here, you can either, again, time period, in which case I have 30 minutes per period, or you could look at none, in which case they're all thrown into the same group, and so every rotation that comes in is being factored into a global average. Or you can throw rotations as they come in into the day of the week average, so it'll compare rotations that all happen on a Monday. So I like time period for intraday strategy analysis, and 30 minutes is nice because it reflects the fact that TPO traders use 30-minute periods. And we will not look at z-score setting quite yet, but here we're measuring the length of these rotations in points. And then here I have subgraphs turned on. You have a number of different options that you can play with, but here, just to focus on, I have average rotation, which is your yellow line, and then up rotations are blue. The averages of the up rotations are blue, and the averages for the down rotations are red. And so that's what we have on length. And let me go ahead and unhide these. You can also look at delta. That's looking at the delta on those legs. And here you can see, as expected, that the average rotation is hovering around 0, but that up rotations tend to have positive delta and negative rotations tend to have negative delta, as expected. And those numbers are interesting and could be meaningful for analyzing the product that you're trading or researching. Now, duration, this is in minutes, is worth saying. I should probably put that on the study somewhere. But you can see that, early in the morning, where volatility is very high, you have something like 3-minute average rotations here with these settings. And that, let's say, overnight, you have longer average rotations, hovering around, let's say half an hour. And then the other thing we can look at is volume, the average volume on one of these legs. Now, I also measure standard deviations and things like that. So what you can do is you can look at a z-score. And for those of you who don't know, a z-score is a value, given value. So here we're looking at delta. So this is the current delta on the bar minus the mean delta for whatever our mean is coming from, whether that mean is coming from the mean of the over the time period or the mean over the global, all the rotations, or of those rotations relative to the day of the week. But we're taking anyhow the current value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation on that time period, and that is giving us the z-score. And you can notice things that you could think of this as sort of a measure of how abnormally large or small these values are. And you can use this again. These are same thing as there's no look ahead bias on the mean and standard deviation, and it is using the current value here to give us the z-score. So you can use this to generate signals. I'll leave it up to you all to research what the relationships between these values as they, let's say, become anomalous are, and price action. And you can also, for positive or negative excess, you can turn this on. I won't do it right now, but the threshold for z-score signal, in this case you say 2, and this would trigger these subgraphs whenever you had respectively a z-score higher than 2 or a z-score lower than 2. So you can adjust that as you want. And you also have the option for only using a positive z-score in case you're looking for only anomalously long rotations that you wanted to fade, let's say. So the other thing that I wanted to cover is delta retrace. This is saying what percentage would the delta have to move. So let's say on the previous leg you had positive delta, and then on this leg it's going to look for when the delta becomes negative, in a reversal that's 12% of at least 12% of the value of the previous leg, and in the opposite direction. So again, if the last leg was negative delta, you wait for the positive delta on the current leg, which is 12% of what the absolute value of the negative delta on the previous leg was, and then it'll fire a signal. And really, we made this for the use case of these Renko charts, mimicking to some degree some one of the popular traders on FinTwit that you may recognize the work here, or the sort of inspiration for the concept. But here is, let me show you what we have. We have a Renko chart. You have this Zig Zag tracking length with these settings, and with a Renko, you can set this to 0.01 or whatever. This doesn't have to be as coarse grained as you have it on the 1 minute chart, because it's going to show naturally as soon as the Renko flips from going up to going down, it's going to count that as a reversal of the leg. So in any case, we use these values and we pipe them into dynamic up and down rotations. And so we're using the average down rotation, and this one is going to trigger a red. This red ticks from high when you're in a when you're in a down rotation, and you're looking for from the previous high once you go kind of past whatever the current average down rotation is. And then we have a dynamic up rotation is this blue one. So once you're past, again, rel the last swing low, when you get past whatever the average up rotation amount is. And then these signal combos are being generated from the for a buy signal once you're sufficiently far from a high. So once these red bars kick in, and then we get a swing, then we notice that we had a Renko swing low, then it's going to trigger this as a reversal signal. Conversely, inversely, whatever it is, it ticks from low, looking at these blue guys, and then looking at on the next bar, since allowed bar lag 1 for both of these. When you notice the Renko swing high, then here we trigger a sell signal for an attempted reversal. Now be careful on back testing with Renko charts. I'll leave you to look that up on Sierra chart. Make sure you're doing that correctly. And then here for reference, I wanted to show this delta retrace function is these color bars, the green and yellow color bars. So again, negative delta, and then this is when it's reversed by 12%. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that my previous, I have done some work to speed up the PA zigzag function to make it feasible, and these numbers you'll notice are very, very reasonable. You know, if you're trying to do something super low latency and automated, not good enough, but for anything that you're doing by hand, I'm going to say around 50 milliseconds is probably going to work for you. But the studies you can see on all of these, again, 61 milliseconds. Our calculations here is, you know, slower than what it takes to recognize a zigzag, but they should be fast enough for most, you know, non-full algo trading purposes, and for, you know, chart trading on Sierra. So all of these I've sped it up, and what will slow it down is if you don't use, you know, if you move that reversal amount down to, you know, if you do it to 0.01 here, this is going to get excruciatingly slow because it's going to pick up way more rotations than you probably want. So again, giving it a, you know, and the reason just to see that is if I said 0.01 here, you can see how wiggly that gets, which then it would be treating every one of those as a rotation, and then it would be sort of cluttering up our you know, the calculation machinery would have to work that much harder, that much more frequently. So if you coarse grain it, which will probably depend on the product, you know, finding this zigzag setting will be something product dependent that you're going to want to do for whatever you're looking at, and perhaps dependent upon how you like to trade and how many points on that product counts as a reversal in your book. But given those settings, you're going to be able to bring these the calculation times down to something I think quite reasonable. But in any case, I am always trying to improve these and speed them up, and we'll keep you posted when I do. These charts will be posted in the Discord.